Hello, and welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance, where I am your host, Alasius Inger.
And I am Duncan Sandlin. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you, Lacey?
Well, geez, you know what? It is 2024 now, and we are off to the races,
So
some of which are election races.
So I have to apologize. I know we were a little sparse over the last couple of weeks from the holidays. We were busy. We plugged some stuff in. But anyway, we're going to jump in today. It's going to be actually kind of fun. We're going to talk about Trump and the election disqualifications. We're going to talk about some of the problems with the Supreme Court. Lauren Boebert is trying to run away from her district and find solace somewhere else. And then we're going to talk about Turning Points USA and their women shouldn't vote policy. And then we'll jump into how Joe Rogan is not a bright individual. He's an idiot. Let's just say he's an idiot. And then we'll talk about the economy, and then we'll do some financial planning stuff. So I hope everybody's ready. Are you ready? Are you jazzed?
I'm ready.
All right. So first thing, Trump, Colorado disqualified him from the ballot. Maine also disqualified him from the ballot. There are 5 other states. I know Oregon, where I live, is one of them. Michigan is one of them. But he's going to fight this in the Supreme Court, and they just pushed an appeal to the Supreme Court. But the question is what is the Supreme Court going to do? Because they haven't really answered this question yet at this point. I think they will have to take it up, but the question is how do they answer it? So let's look at a couple little clips here about what people think is going on, because it's really fascinating. Because this has not been an issue since Nixon.
The Michigan Supreme Court has rejected an appeal seeking to keep former President Trump off the state's 2024 ballot. The watchdog group Free Speech for People filed the challenge seeking to bar Trump from the ballot on constitutional grounds. They argue the 14th Amendment bars anyone who was engaged in insurrection from running for office, and that Trump's actions on January 6th disqualify him from holding office again. Let's bring in senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky for more on this. Good to see you again, Aaron.
You too.
So this, of course, comes after Colorado's Supreme Court came to the opposite conclusion, ruling that Trump would be kept off that state's primary ballot. That case now appears headed for the U.S. Supreme Court. So what happens next? How significant, I guess, is this decision today?
Well, it's significant in that we now have competing views. Although the Michigan Supreme Court did not weigh the issues the way the Colorado Supreme Court did, it just declined to hear.
So the Michigan Supreme Court, I'm going to qualify this real quick. So the Michigan Supreme Court, they changed the thing. They said, okay, well, we're not going to say he's not disqualified from the primary ballot, but the actual election ballot, yeah, the Secretary of State might be able to say that. That was their whole position. We can't tell the Republican primary what to do because they're private. But we could potentially
that. Right.
Yeah. So Colorado, on the other hand, said, no, we're going to disqualify him from the primary. You can't even put him on the primary. Right. So Colorado actually levied a demand and a restraint on the Republican Party for the primary. Michigan said, nope, we'll hold off, but we still reserve the right to withhold him. The Secretary of State reserves the right to withhold him from the actual ballot. You can elect him on the primary. We don't give a shit. But it's even worse because Maine basically ruled the same way Colorado did. But this guy's nailing
hear the appeal. So we don't know what additional arguments may have been made, whether something new may have been brought to the fore in Michigan. The Supreme Court simply affirmed the decision of 2 lower courts to say that Trump belongs on the ballot and that the challenges by the group that you mentioned just didn't need to be heard at the highest level. But it does now present an interesting dichotomy because you have competing decisions in the states. So it does seem ripe for U.S. Supreme Court review.
Meaning that other states may just pick a side at this point because there seems to be a case for either side to be made.
Well, in some ways, yes. And there are decisions pending in more than a dozen states where legal challenges to Trump's ballot eligibility have been filed. Now, some of those are left to the courts. In the case of Maine, for example, it's left to the Secretary of State. And we're expecting a decision from the Secretary of State in Maine any day now.
Mhm.
So it
Well, she already ruled that he can't. So
He can't.
be on the ballot.
He can't. And that's the primary ballot.
Yeah. So that's the Secretary of Maine. So the question becomes this. And this is where it gets really confusing in the Constitution, right? Typically, these sorts of things are left to the states, and primarily the voting is left to the Secretary of State. And unless you're a business owner, you have no idea who your Secretary of State is. Right? I mean, I know who mine is. I go on the website all the time. I see her face all the time. I pay taxes to them all the time. I know who they are, right? But they get the final say on a lot of these things. Now, the question is, does the Supreme Court take this issue up? Because it'll be difficult, because if you have some states saying, well, no, he can't be on the ballot, and some states saying, yes, he can be in a national election, that's a big discrepancy, right? Now, here's the issue where it gets really convoluted.
All right, hit us with it, because I'm thinking off the top of my head, I feel like, well, I guess I feel kind of like two things. It takes things a long time to end up at the Supreme Court. So that's already interesting issue on something with such a time frame to it. It'd have to, push it to the front of the line. But also, to a degree, on something that big, it would be a hard thing for them to say they weren't going to take up,
So,
kind of feel like they almost are going to have to.
So here's what happened. So the Colorado Supreme Court said, okay, we're going to withhold him from the ballot, right? But we'll put a stay on that if the Supreme Court takes up this case. The final deadline they gave was January 5th, which is, as of this filming, is tomorrow. So the Supreme Court has to make a decision quick, because otherwise he won't even be on the fucking primary ballot. So now we've got a whole big issue here. The other issue comes down to, is this a federal issue or is this a state issue? Right? So this puts the conservative Supreme Court in a bind. Right? Because you're either going to say, no, we're federally going to say X, so the states don't have a say in this, so we're going to take away states' rights. Or they're going to have to say, well, we're going to leave it at the states. So they're in a tough position here. The other position they're in is, okay, they're primarily conservative. 3 of them were appointed by Trump, of the 9. And 6 of the 9 are all very conservative. So you have a couple arguments you could play. You could play the, well, I don't know, maybe the 13th Amendment doesn't apply to the presidency. It just applies to every other office. So then you're giving the president special powers and immunity.
Right.
Which is a labored argument. That's a tough argument. The other argument they could make is, well, you have to convict of an insurrection before you can do that. Which discounts the entire point of the 13th Amendment, because it was done during the Civil War, and we didn't convict any of those people. We just barred them from office.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry to say, though, it kind of feels like the Supreme Court's making shit up at this point, though.
Well, they have been for a long time, but the question is do they take this? If they take it, they're going to humiliate themselves. No matter what they do, they're just going to make themselves a joke. Not that they already are. It's just going to be worse.
I was going to say, it's kind of going that direction.
Right. I mean, it's like being a clown, but now I'm going to stick the cucumber, up my hole. Kind of thing. I mean, it's really embarrassing. Like super embarrassing. So we'll see what they do on that whole issue, but that's the question: is do they take it? Which they probably should. But if they take it, they can't make the decision that they should make, and they know that. And that's the problem. Because
Right.
they're so beholden to all this other shit. I mean, it's a joke. So
yeah, and I mean, think about if they were to override states' rights in an electoral process.
As Republicans.
Yeah.
It's amazing that the Democrats, we're the states' rights people now, aren't we? It's amazing how that happened.
Yeah. You'd have to have all these Supreme Court justices say no states' rights on this.
Yeah. No, it's ridiculous. So let's flip to this. So this is Andrea Mitchell, and she has got. I wish we could get panelists like this. This is an amazing panel. But watch them just talk about this for like a minute.
Joining me now is Andrew Weissman, former FBI General Counsel and former senior member of the Mueller investigation, and Adam Liptak, Supreme Court reporter for the New York Times. So, Andrew, first to you, what is your reading of the Trump appeal to Maine Superior Court, first of all, on this issue?
Let me qualify this. So Trump appealed this. He appealed it to the Maine Superior Court. It's probably going to get kicked up at the Supreme Court. We'll see what they do. But his appeal, he never mentioned, well, I guess they did mention the insurrection once, really briefly. But his whole thing was he had immunity and all this other stuff. It's really embarrassing.
And it's the same effect as Colorado's, but different procedures in the two states.
Absolutely. So in Colorado, that case went all the way already to the Colorado Supreme Court, so the highest court in that state. And the Republican Party has sought cert to the Supreme Court of the United States. Donald Trump has not yet sought to seek cert as himself as well. So that remains to be seen whether he too will do that. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. Now in Maine, we're in a slightly different situation because we have the Secretary of State who you just played a clip of. She made her decision. That's the proper way that procedure works in Maine. They're entitled to have their own processes. And then it goes to Maine State Court. And so there has been appeal there. And ultimately that.
So look, these are the challenges right now. So pending challenges to whether he should be on the ballot: Oregon, California, Nevada, Wyoming, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Wisconsin. Colorado and Maine are the only ones who've already decided.
Well, so there are two states that decided he is not qualified, and two states have decided to dismiss it, which means he can be on the ballot.
Yeah. And then there's what?
2 and 2.
1, 2, 3, 4.
West Virginia.
5,
West
6,
Virginia
7,
and Arizona are allowing him, and Maine and Colorado are not.
Right. And there are 15 states that are saying we should take him off, that are arguing about that now. It's amazing. I mean, we haven't really grappled with this in our lifetime. I mean, the idea that a president could be, or a presidential candidate, especially a former president, could be just ripped off the ballot. And yeah, I don't know, maybe you're a Trump supporter, maybe you're not, you can agree or disagree with it, but the bottom line is, did he incite an insurrection? Now, the question is, the Supreme Court's going to ask is, well, can we prove that? Has he been convicted of it? That would be, I think that would be the way they would weasel out of this whole thing. Right? I think the reality would be, you don't really have to prove it. Not to the, like, you know, the extent of like a criminal case, like, you know, beyond reasonable doubt. I think it would be more like civil case. Preponderance of the evidence. Yeah, he did. He tried to overthrow. Right. He tried to overthrow democracy. And if you watch what he's saying on TV now, he's trying to do it again. He wants to do it again. He's talking about. He's like, yeah, I'll be a dictator. He's fucking said it. He fucking said that. So we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, the analysis here is it's what is going to happen, because this is going to affect our economy, our lives, our democracy, how we live going forward. I mean, if they let this guy slide, I mean, it's going to be a whole new world.
That will work its way up to it.
Was that you?
What's the timeline? Yeah, that's me. What's the timeline in which this would have to be heard and decided on by the Supreme Court, though, in order to force people to put him on the ballot? Because I think if it's heard by the Supreme Court of the United States, I think they'll weasel him out of it. That's not what I want to happen, but it's what I think they'll do. But the timeline here feels really critical and pretty hairy, although I don't know exactly what it is. How fast would they have to manage to do that?
Well, so I'm with you. I think here's the deal, and this is the big question, because the Supreme Court hasn't said they'll take it up yet. We'll probably hear by this Friday. So what? January 6th, 2 days from now, or a day from now, or tomorrow, actually. Sorry. But we'll hear about whether or not they're going to do it. But the bottom line is, if they don't, Colorado has set the limit at the 5th, which is tomorrow, Friday, January 5th. So
wait, what does that mean?
Colorado will rip him off the primary ballot tomorrow. If the Supreme Court, they don't have to rule, but they have to say, we'll take the case. And then Colorado will keep their stay. Maine has said the same thing. We will stay it if the Supreme Court takes it. If they don't take it by X date, all bets are off. Now, the bottom line is, does the Supreme Court take it? And like you said, if they do take it, I'm with you. I think they'll try to weasel the way out of it.
Right. Yeah, I believe that.
I think they'll chicken shit out. You know, I don't think our Supreme Court has any sort of balls or chutzpah or care for the American people. I think they're a bunch of fucking bought off corrupt shills.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it's become, you know?
Yeah, but we'll see how it plays out. But this is going to change how the fluctuation of the country moves. Because there is a chance, honestly, that the Supreme Court goes, you know what, this is just too hot of a potato, and we are in too much fucking trouble right now. Maybe we just back the fuck off, and we just don't touch it. They might say that. I'm not saying they will. Reasonably speaking, there's a lot of pressure that they should do something, but what are they going to do? What argument are they going to propose? The main argument they can propose is, well, the 13th Amendment doesn't apply to the presidency because it's not specific. So they're arguing form over substance. Right, which everybody knows, and it'll be a fucking joke.
Yeah.
And they'll just hurt themselves even more. Which is why a lot of the states, like I live in Oregon, and they call us, sanctuary cities and shit like that. You know why? Because we don't abide by the Supreme Court. Why? Because they're corrupt.
Right.
And if they don't like it, they can come here and they can bring the military in and they can try and enforce it. Enjoy that.
Right.
I mean, eat our dicks, man. States' rights. You guys argued for years. Here it is. You just don't like it when we do it.
The state courts there, and ultimately it may too, like Colorado, wend its way to the Supreme Court of the United States. So those are the sort of two processes in those two different states.
And this, of course, is all on the 14th Amendment and the constitutionality. And I guess, Adam, first question would be, do you think, knowing the court as you do, that Chief Justice Roberts is going to try to avoid a Bush v. Gore decisive decision on this and try to find something that involves due process, the fact perhaps that there's been no charge of insurrection or something to try to get an exit ramp for the court?
I do think he's going to want to avoid a divisive decision like Bush v. Gore. He's going to want to avoid a decision that splits 6-3 with the 6 Republican appointees in the majority, the 3 Democratic appointees in dissent. I don't think he's going to be eager to decide whether Trump's conduct amounted to engaging in insurrection. So there may be some technical ways to avoid the issue by calling it a political question, say, by saying Congress has to enact enabling legislation before the courts can act. But it's a tricky thing. And I think it's quite unwelcome at the court. But at the same time, this question really would seem to need a national resolution. And I think it's more likely than not that the court hears the Colorado case and decides it pretty quickly.
So, I mean, he's right. It's kind of unfortunate that he's right, but I think he's right. It's like we were just talking about. I think they're going to weasel their way out. That's what he just said.
Yeah.
The thing he added is they don't want to bring this to an issue. And it's like, okay, well, I'm sorry, you're the court. If you're not going to stand up for justice, what the fuck good are you?
No good. No good at all, really.
I'm sorry, it just frustrates the shit out of me. It's like, you're the Supreme Court. I mean, and you're going to sit there and you're just going to capitulate because you don't want to deal with the politics? You're the court. You guys have lifetime.
You find up to have to deal with all of the everything.
You guys have lifetime appointments. That's the whole point of giving you lifetime appointments, is that you don't have to fucking deal with the politics. You shouldn't be dealing with the politics. You shouldn't be taking bribes and doing other shit. You should be the court, and you should just say, no, this is what it is.
But they are taking bribes.
Absolutely. So that brings us to our next fun issue. So here's Alex Wagner. Segue. Good job, Lacey. Nice segue. Alex Wagner talking about scandal in the courts. Here we go.
49% of Americans say they have trust and confidence in the United States Supreme Court. When Bill Clinton was president, that number was 80%. The absolute nosedive in American confidence in this court, polled this year in September, followed reports that Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito had routinely received lavish gifts and vacations from billionaire conservative activists, and came at a time when the court itself ended federal protection for reproductive choice, ended the practice of race-conscious admissions decisions, and all but sanctioned discrimination against same-sex couples. This term, the court will make even more landmark decisions, including potentially whether to impose further restrictions on abortion access and whether the federal criminal case against Donald Trump can proceed. Joining me now is Mark Joseph Stern, senior writer covering the courts and the law.
All right, before we jump into Mark here, Yeah, man. The Roe v. Wade decision. Okay, let's go to this. Alito and Clarence Thomas, who's my favorite. I actually saw him speak live at University of
Really?
Portland. Yeah. And I walked out of there. I wanted to puke because half of his speech was about how voting rights were not inherent. Not everybody should have the right to vote.
Oh
That
my
was
God.
like half his speech. On top of that fact, the Roe v. Wade decision, right, back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
Well, wait. So it was back in the 70s. It gave women the right to choose up until whatever it was, 24 weeks into pregnancy.
Yes. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Like, but anyway, and then it was beyond that. It was like, okay, if it was life or death, then it was up to the doctor. Right? You know, not where I'd have gone, but I think a very reasonable, practical decision on how to deal with that issue.
Right.
Now, they rescinded that under Dobbs, under the Dobbs hearing. You know what's fascinating about the Dobbs hearing on abortion?
Mm-mm.
Roe v. Wade was never mentioned. Wasn't even a part of the Dobbs hearing. Alito added that. And then somebody mysteriously leaked that information, which put pressure on Kavanaugh and Boebert to withhold it. So now Roe is gone. So now you can make abortion illegal, which they have in a lot of states, and we've covered this.
I was going to say, that happened. Yeah, we've talked quite a bit about this.
And we've covered this a lot of times, and there's thousands and thousands of women who are suffering horrible medical situations, dying, trying to find abortions, are going to be remanded to poverty or having to give their kids up to adoption. Just horrific outcomes. And they don't fucking give a shit. On top of that fact, it's like not just the corruption, but it's like, what the fuck is going on where the Supreme Court, the 9 people in this country that are supposed to be the ones that are unbiased above it all, and they're taking fucking bribes from conservatives in the tone of millions of dollars, and vacations and houses, and what was it? One billionaire paid for Clarence Thomas's, adopted son to go to fucking private school, or grandson, whatever. I mean, just millions of dollars. I mean, it's so corrupt. So fucking corrupt. It's amazing to me. But let's listen to Mark here.
Slate Magazine. Mark, thank you for joining me. First, let me get your reaction to this New York Times reporting and what stood out to you as a court watcher as most egregious.
Yeah, we expect slog rolling, horse trading, and deal making from politicians in the Senate cloakroom. But what we saw from the Supreme Court justices while deliberating this decision was something else entirely. This looked a lot like raw, cynical, partisan politicking of the basest sort. It was incredibly dishonest. The court concealed its vote on this case from the public, as Adam pointed out moments ago. That is almost unprecedented and suggests that this court did not trust the public to learn the truth about its decision-making process because it had been so corrupted. I think that's one of many details that jumped out as indications that, this court is cloaked in scandal, is cloaked in distrust of the public, and is aggressively trying to change the law with a lot of arrogance and a very little caution toward how the public is going to receive it.
Yeah, the arrogance.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And that's where it comes back to the whole thing we were just talking about with Trump. I mean, it's the whole like you said, do you have any faith that they're going to do the right thing?
No, none. In fact, I just assume that they're just going to do what the party that associates with their ideological leaning wants.
Well,
I just assume that's going to happen.
Well,
yeah.
Where they're getting their bribes from.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a disgusting thing. I mean, it's amazing to me, but we could watch the rest of this report, and you guys should. I think we can kind of bypass it, but that's kind of the point. Is the corruption is so rampant. And the Supreme Court, I mean, these are supposed to be the guys and the girls that are above the fray. This is the third house, right? And they're the third estate, and they just half of them are taking money. More than half. And they're aligned with all these corrupt individuals. I mean, it's I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's like I said.
I mean, there's nothing more to say other than that. Yeah, only 49% of the people have confidence in you, and the rest of them probably think you're a joke. Those numbers are pretty sick.
Or worse than that, yeah. It's never been that low. Not since we've been scoring it. It's never been that low. John Roberts is going to go down in history as a fucking joke. And so is Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. They're just going to go down as a humiliation. A black fucking stain on this country. I mean, that's what they are. That's what they're going to be. On top of that fact, I just want to go back for 1 second. I mean, right now, I mean, you're talking about Trump's talking about he wants to be a dictator. And he's using Nazi rhetoric in his speeches. And the argument is, is he unqualified because he incited an insurrection, or he's giving aid and comfort to insurrectionists? Right? The only argument they can make, because he is, that's an easy case to make. The only argument they can make is, well, the 14th Amendment doesn't really apply to the president. It applies to everybody else, just not the president. And it's like, okay, so wait a minute. So when we fought the Revolutionary War against the King of England, to say there are no kings, we rule ourselves. And now you're saying, well, wait, but the president is like a king.
It's no exception.
Yeah,
right.
The law doesn't apply. He's like Elizabeth I when she used to say all the time, the law doesn't apply to princes. Fuck you.
Sounds terrifying.
Fuck you. The law applies to everybody, or it's not the law. The law is either right and good and just, or it fucking isn't the law. And in which case, I say, let's do mass revolution.
Yeah.
Sorry to say it, but I'm going to say it.
Viva la revolution.
Viva! Viva! Yeah, Robespierre was a horrible guy, but, well, I mean, like Mao Zedong, horrible guy, but the longer I go through life, I'm kind of like, yeah, maybe we should take all the, the wealthy royal kids and stick them on farms and let them be abused for a couple of years. So they can get a fucking sense of what it's like.
You're like, why does that idea somehow seem less bad now?
I know it's a horrible idea, but you're like,
but maybe
it kind of starts making some sense. Yeah. All right, well, let's do something more fun. Lauren Boebert, the Boeberduke. Oh yeah, yep. She's having a rough time. It's looking like she might not win her election. She won it by like 500 votes last time in Colorado. even though
Oh, geez, okay.
people call it a purple district, but it's more red than it is blue, right? But she barely won. Well, she's got an amazing announcement for all of us today. And it's not that she's going to another Beetlejuice musical to make out with a guy. That's not the announcement. So if you guys got excited about that, that's not the announcement.
Here at 7 o'clock,
I did have a
Colorado
moment.
Congresswoman announcing
What?
I did have a moment.
Okay.
I was hoping.
Oh, you were hoping for a little, little groping, a little vaping. Yeah, but no, not going to happen.
big change for her
Groping,
campaign
groping,
ahead of the
groping.
2024 election cycle. Representative Lauren Boebert making that announcement earlier today that she will not run for re-election in District 3 on the Western Slope. Instead, she'll enter the race for District 4 on Colorado's Eastern Plains. That seat currently belongs to Republican Ken Buck, who announced a few weeks ago that he would not be running for re-election. In a video posted to social media, Boebert said she was grateful for everyone who stood with her over the past year. She went on to say she will do everything in her power to represent the 3rd District for the remainder of this term.
I did not arrive at this decision easily. A lot of prayer, a lot of tough conversations, and a lot of perspective have convinced me that this is the best way I can continue to fight for Colorado, for the conservative movement, and for my children's future, and for the future of our great country.
Boebert has been representing District 3 since she was first elected to that position in 2020. She took office in 2021. Last year, she narrowly won re-election, beating out Democrat Adam Frisch by just about 550 votes.
So, I want to throw that because this is fucking hilarious. Do you know the term carpetbagger?
Yes.
Yeah. So she is a total carpetbagger.
In the carpet bag, and you just move yourself to where it's a little more convenient for you.
To where it's easier. She is scared shitless she's going to lose to Adam Frisch and be fucking humiliated, which, frankly, she should be. And, the bottom line is she's just running away, and she's scared shitless. She knows she's fucked up. She knows she's lost. So, the district, Ken Buck was the congressman from that district. He was a Republican. Very red district. Mm-hmm. Very rural, but it's got like a 10th of the population of the district she was in before. And they're all white. And like 80 or 90% of them are non-college educated. So she has a better chance. But she doesn't because she's primarying against 4 other people who are more prominent Republicans. She's just more famous than they are because she's been, grabbing some wiener at the Beetlejuice musical.
Beetlejuice.
I'm just telling you, Lacey, if a guy says, "Hey, you want to go to the Beetlejuice musical?" you should be a little bit leery. Unless you want to do that, you can do that. But
listen, I got groped in a Broadway theater by a stranger, and I was not having it.
Well,
I was not having it. Apparently, she was pretty happy about it, but
yeah, well,
I was less than happy and a little vocal.
That's the difference.
They weren't happy about that.
That's the difference between you and Lauren Boebert. But yeah, no, I mean, I think she's kind of screwed herself here because she's pissed off a lot of the Republican Party by doing this. So let's watch this little clip here. Let's see if this covers it.
Joining me now, David Wasserman, the senior editor and elections analyst for the...
Hang on, let me jump to this. Oh, here we go.
Plains district is a lot redder, and culturally and economically, it's quite different. There were already 4 prominent Republicans running in that open seat, including a prominent state rep, 2 former state senators, a radio host. Boebert may be counting on a fractured primary field to allow her, with her existing high profile, to retain a seat in Congress, even though she currently represents none of those constituents.
Yeah, so maybe break down the stakes there in that primary. There's potential. She's no guarantee, I should say, to be the nominee in that district.
That's true. You've got Ted Harvey, Jerry Sonnenberg, Deborah Flora, and these are Republicans who had racked up plenty of endorsements locally in a district that is really sprawling and has a lot of farms on the Eastern Plains. Now, in the 3rd district, where Adam Frisch, the Democrat, had raised over $4 million so far against Boebert, he's essentially lost his rationale for all of the Democrats who've given him a ton of money to get Lauren Boebert out of Congress. And we'll see who Republicans nominate, but Republicans' prospects have improved in that district. And they also got good news, by the way, in Georgia today when a federal judge approved of a new map that preserves Republicans' gerrymandered advantage in that state. So the House prospects for Republicans have brightened at the end of the year.
But do you think that it is going to matter?
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting point. It's like the maps have actually moved into her favor, but I guess her team is telling her it's not even worth running because you're going to get smoked by the Democrat. So it's better to run against a bunch of primary voters or primary constituents or candidates. So she's just, she's just so scared. I mean, she's just running for whatever high ground she can get. I mean, it's just terrifying. I mean,
the idea is, these folks wanting to be career politicians, like that now that is literally a career thing. But you see where I'm going with that? Like,
well, I'm with you. I mean, it should be this. It should be an honor. It should be a civil service position. It should be that you should be honored to do these. But now it's a job and it's a platform to move up to something better. It's a stepping stone.
Right. Like, this is my career path rather than this thing that I am doing for this period of time as a service. You know what I mean? It's stopped being that sort of noble construct of which I feel the idea was originated, but it's become like a ladder climbing, I don't know.
No. I mean, you're right. It's become. Well, I mean, it used to be that like being a politician, it was an honor. It was something you did to serve the community. Now it's this. I'm talking decades and decades ago. I'm not talking about in recent time, not in our lifetime at least. But yeah, now it's become just really I'm trying to get my spot on seeing. Well, I mean, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
When our country first originated, were people being senators and congressmen for like their whole adult lives?
Initially it was they were trying to protect their wealth and their property. And a lot of what our country was founded on was slavery. So, right. I can see where there's a lot of dishonor in being a politician. But there was some concept, at least maybe in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, even though it was really horrifically segregated and women didn't have equal rights and we oppressed the homosexuals just god awfully. But there was some concept of, we pay higher taxes and we do the job because we're civil servants and we actually give a shit. I might be wrong about all that, but I get a feeling that there was some sense of that, even though they were wrong about 90% of what they were doing. There was some sense that I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the fame or the glory, because there was no fame or glory back then. There was no C-SPAN or 24-hour cable news networks. There was no going on television shit. I mean, nobody knew. Honestly, nobody knew who their local senator was. Nobody knew who their local congressperson was. And in fact, there is still a degree of that. Like, I'm just ask you, the viewers, who's your local congressperson? I know mine. My Congresswoman is Congresswoman Salinas. I know who she is. Where I work in Portland, it's Susan Bonamici is my Congresswoman where I work. I know that. Do you know them? Of course you don't know them. Why? Because they're not trying to draw attention. They're just trying to do their jobs. Which is why they keep getting voted in.
I happen to know, well, one of mine, I mean, we've got a lot of them broken down over here, but
you guys got a ton.
Yeah, we've got a ton. But I know at least one of mine because she works heavily with our school. She comes to our school periodically. So I know her. But I may not have any reason to otherwise.
But a normal congressperson.
Yeah,
but a normal congressperson, I'm going to go talk to the teachers. I'm going to talk to the unions. I'm going to talk to the civil servants. I'm going to go.
Right.
Yeah. When I'm not in Congress, I'm going to go out and talk to the people and find out what I need to do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. To a degree, I mean, I feel bad for Colorado because people like Lauren Boebert, these Republicans, they've lost the thread. They've completely. AOC is not a celebrity because she wanted to be. It's because she was a young Latina and she beat the odds and won that district. But she spends a lot of time in that district talking to the people. And then when they had the power outage in Texas and Ted Cruz, senator, fled the state to Cancun, who was down there? AOC was down there racking up charity to try and make sure these people had food, blankets, clean water, trying to help the people out while their own representative was in fucking Cancun because it was too cold in Texas and people were dying because they were freezing and they couldn't get food and water. I mean, there's a degree here. I mean, it's like, I'm not going to say the Democrats are perfect, but at least, they try. I mean, I'm not gonna sell you the hooker with a heart of gold, but man, yeah, it's just amazing to me. Yeah, but Lauren Boebert, carpetbagging, running away. Where can I win? Oh, I can win over here? Fine. She doesn't even live there. She doesn't know any of those people. Nah. All right, you ready to do some clips?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we'll go back in 3, 2, 1. All right, so we covered the news, the basic political news. I mean, not all of it. You can't cover all of it, but the important stuff. However, let's cover some fun stuff that's been going on. So TPUSA, Turning Points USA, which is the big conservative thing, they had their...
I'm sorry, we'd be like 12 for a minute. TPUSA,
yeah.
Why would you sign off on that? Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's talk about TP.
Well, it is kind of apt. They want to toilet paper the country. So, anyway. Here they
only about half of it.
Yeah.
They only want to do about half of it.
Just the people they don't like. Yeah. So,
and which people are those, Duncan? Which people are those?
Oh, I don't know. People like us, leftists. Anyway.
Yeah.
So they did I don't know, some conference thing. But I pulled up a clip. You might like this. So this is Sam Cedar, Emma Vigilant on the Majority Report. We've used them a bunch of times before. They're great. If you haven't seen the show, you should definitely check it out. It's a great show. But they're talking about a clip from TPUSA where they talk about the right to vote. So enjoy this. So
we're about to find out who they want to TP.
Yeah, this is Sam and Emma.
And outdo each other in revanchist and retrograde ideas. Graham Page says it is important to know Jason Whitlock has no family, children, never has. I'm not sure why, but go ahead.
Okay.
Vacuum cleaners. We didn't have Clorox wet wipes. It took a lot of effort to maintain a home in the 16, 17, and 1800s. Women, in their proper mindset, in my view, were so respectful and so honored by the responsibility God gave them of nurturing and developing and grooming children in the womb, because that is when life begins.
Well, there you go, right there. We're already starting off with a great set. So women, back in the... Shut up, Lacey. I'm a man and I'm talking. You need to be respectful. You need to be respectful.
That is not what's happening here. I do not need anyone to tell me about my womb. If you're not my doctor, you don't get to tell me about my womb. And even then, I feel like I can tell my doctor a handful of things about my womb.
Well,
so he lost me at mansplaining my womb to me.
Well, but I think he missed his bigger point, and actually, you illustrated you missed his bigger point, which is you need to be respectful of me, the man.
Hey everybody, please type in the comments below. Can I be respectful of the man over here and let him tell me about my womb?
I don't know about your womb. I'm just saying you need to be respectful. Lacey, all I know is this, is I came home yesterday from work and I'm a single guy and, half of our generation is not married. And yet dinner was not on the table when I got home. So what the fuck, what the hell is up with you guys? What's going on? I had to make my own dinner. How did that happen?
Did you have to go out and club it over the head and drag it into?
No.
Something manly like that?
I went to a grocery store.
Mm-hmm. No, you're not doing your job.
You're probably not. Oh my God, I love that. Women were respectful. Are you fucking kidding me with that shit?
Oh, yeah, no, thank you.
You're in the wrong goddamn era, motherfucker.
Well, and they pointed out that he's never been married and doesn't have any kids. I mean, I've never been married and I don't have any kids either, but...
Well, neither have I, but I don't
know. I'm just going to suggest that, he probably would not want a lefty woman like me, but I sure don't plan on having any dates, or if I accidentally ended up on one, no follow-up dates with somebody who talks about how way back then women were respectful.
Yeah. Well,
Don't start educating me about my womb. Nope. Next.
I'm an elder millennial. I have different concepts, right? I'm like, the cooking and cleaning shit, yeah, we can split that up. I'll cook, I'll clean, I don't care. But you better have a fucking job. I don't care what your job is. Just have a job. I have a job. You should have a job. It's the 21st century. It's not the 1600s anymore. It's not the 1800s. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. I just know you're not being respectful, Lacey, and it's hurtful.
That women weren't sitting around saying, "Oh my my God, if I was an advertising executive, how much happier I would be.
I just wanted to let you know that in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, there were no advertising executives, even if you were male. I mean, I understand it would be, inappropriate and for women to be thinking like that. Although, on the other hand, it would have also been very forward-thinking in that there would be advertising executives at all. Those did not happen really until the 20th.
Sam kind of just hammers home the stupidity of the whole thing. Oh my gosh. This is just it's so ridiculous. I can't even, but this is the conservative movement. This is what they're selling. This is especially what they're selling to young men. This is their whole movement to get young men to vote for them. This is it. Women need to be subservient, making us sandwiches, and I should come home and you should have a freaking cocktail ready and kiss my ass.
Well, kiss, kick, I don't know.
Lacey, what's important is you don't have a job and you just stay home and take care of me. That's your whole existence.
When I decide I'm not going to have a job, you're not going to find me at home.
No, you're going to be out with some other guy.
For sure.
Somebody who actually appreciates you. It's just such a fucking joke.
That they weren't the primary financial providers in their home. They had the greatest responsibility that God has given. Life. They were responsible for replenishing the earth and nurturing life in the womb, which is the most critical part of the development of children. What transpires in the womb.
So there you go, Lacey. Your job is to stay home, make me dinner,
and let things transpire in my womb.
Yes, and primarily you should produce children.
Create a little colony. There's something colonizing in my womb. I'm having all these cities here. I'm going to create them.
And hey, let's be fair. Preferably, it should be male children. Otherwise, what fucking good are you?
I clearly need more people to tell me about my womb.
Oh, shit. This is it, man. This is a conservative political action conference designed to talk to young people. And they got Jason Whitlock, who is a former coach, who's a total dipshit. I mean, this guy couldn't find his dick with both hands, no matter how hard he tried. I wouldn't trust this guy to find his way out of a paper bag. And he's telling women what they should be doing with their lives. It's just amazing. Amazing to me. All right. So we're going to watch a little bit more of this because this is just, it's fascinating how backwards these people are.
And so they have recreated this history that, oh God, it was all just sexism. And we didn't have the right to vote until Susan B. Anthony and the women's suffrage movement. And I will defend life before suffrage. Because a vote used to represent the family. When we were a culture that really valued family and really understood the natural order that God intended, man serving God, woman following man who serves God, man and woman developing and nurturing children.
Can you pause it? I'm sorry.
Oh my God, that is fucking priceless.
Okay, so
no, go for it. you have to go for it here, man. I got nothing to say. I got nothing.
So by
Oh, hang on 1 second. You're breaking up.
by that,
You there? Okay. All right, go now. Sorry.
yeah. Okay, so by that math, my brain just like exploded into a million shards, just so we're clear here. So by that math, that takes away the vote of all of the married women.
All women.
Because family values.
All women.
Well, but if it belongs to the family.
No. Because he protects life over the right to vote. So you should have to give birth. And that's more important than you being able to have the right to vote. So you should not have the.
If a woman isn't married and doesn't have a husband, does that just mean no vote at all? Or because there's not a husband to do the vote, she would be the head of her family? Or a single woman with children would be the head of her family? So some women would get the vote, but not the women who have husbands?
Well, no.
So then they would be punishing marriage if they did that.
No, but you're confusing this because in his mind, there are no single mothers or women who don't have children. Your only function is to get married and have children.
But what if it backfired on him? What if that meant that he was eliminating the vote? Follow my math, okay? Let's do my version of his math. It's gonna be fun, okay? You ready?
Yeah, no, okay. Go for it. His math is wrong. Go for it.
His math is wrong. Here's my version of his math. So what this effectively means is that for these family values couples, these married couples with children, they only get one vote because it's just one family, one economic unit, right?
Right.
But you and I, we are not married people. We are each separate economic units. Therefore, my economic unit still gets a vote. You see, unless I married you, in which case I delete my vote and you absorb all the voting for both of us, right?
Well, why would you?
So
why would you delete your vote because you married me? You're still in.
Because what he said,
you're trying to do his math. Sorry, my bad.
I'm doing his math. We're not in real logic, we're in his math. But he didn't think his own math through here. Because what that effectively means, they also want to not recognize certain families, all the queer ones. So all of the queer families still get to keep their own individual votes. Right? And a lot of us lefties that are hanging out, living in sin and not getting married and all that sort of stuff, we're keeping our votes because we're not actually married either. So actually, maybe what he's doing is he's largely taking away votes from conservative women.
So let me qualify this. So your argument, your counter argument to his logic is...
Maybe. Okay.
Well, no. You're countering his logic here. You're granting him the premise, right? And you're saying, well, but doesn't it mean that it's better than to not get married?
Well, yes.
Because then you retain your own rights and you retain the right to vote.
Correct.
So
right. He wants to argue for family values, but you would get more rights if you weren't married, and actually he would level up the power of all the queer families by not recognizing their marriages either.
So if you were just...
So he might effectively swing everything a little left without even trying.
Right. So if you were just living with a guy, didn't get married, and you guys had a kid, you'd still have total autonomy over your body.
Right, because we're
not married.
Living in sin, man. We're not a unit.
And you would still retain the right to vote because you're not responsible to him because he's not your husband.
Correct.
I don't know. I like your argument. That's a good argument.
That's a really good argument.
He's basically made the argument.
It took me a while to get you there, but
I was gonna say, ladies, Lacey just nailed it for you. Just if you never get married, you don't have to be responsible to a husband, do you?
So apparently this particular sector of conservatives, whatever little section he is with, apparently they are going to push you to not get married. And if you want to retain your rights, even if they come into any power, just stay not married or be a little gay.
There you
or
go.
a lot gay.
There you go.
Any amount of gay you want, or unmarried. Live in sin.
Lacey just proved it. Just proved it. If you want to have, if you're a woman and you want to retain your rights, just don't get married. Because if you get married, apparently, according to him, you lose all your rights and you have no rights, and you're responsible to your husband and whatever the fuck he wants. Yeah. Good argument. That's a good argument.
You know what? If that's a cage match, I'm putting that in the win column for Lacey.
That is a win. That is a cage match win for Lacey. You just took his argument and beat the shit out of him with it. You might as well have just ripped his arm off.
Beat him with it. Yeah, I do feel like I ripped his arm off and beat him with it. Yeah, that's true. See, I can math.
Good work. Good work. Good work. Good stuff. Yeah.
Win for Lacey. Win for Lacey.
Yeah, dust it off, baby. You nailed that one home. All right. So, while we're talking about stupid people, since I'm horrible at segues, so I got a clip here from Joe Rogan, and he's talking about how Biden is senile and shouldn't be president, because Joe Rogan has to. So Joe Rogan, if you guys don't know, he's got a podcast. He got $100 million from Spotify. I think his contract's actually coming up pretty soon here, if not now. But he's got this. He's kind of flipped very right wing, very libertarian right wing, kind of nut job kind of stuff. And of course, now that he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, he's very anti-tax, very anti-social programs, because that would cost him more money to actually have to help the people, which, we can't do that. Not that we haven't done that for fucking ever, but, whatever. We can't do it. It's bad. Anyway, so he's bitching about how he's talking to some, I don't know, some MMA fighter, some douchebag, and they're talking about how Biden is senile and doesn't know what he's talking about, and then the whole thing flips on his ass really fast. So we'll watch this real quick.
Well, there's people that voted for Biden that are doing it now. They're like, what did I do?
Right.
Like, what did I choose? Like, how is this guy?
Yeah, you just can't listen to an interview where he's saying some of the stuff he says that just makes no sense at all. It's like you can't listen to those interviews and feel like you made a good decision. I don't know how you
Did you hear what he said like yesterday or a couple of days ago? Mm-hmm. He was talking about the Revolutionary War. He's like, one of the reasons why we lost the Revolutionary War, one of the problems with the Revolutionary War was they didn't have enough airports. Yeah. Have you seen that?
I saw that. Like, what?
Like, pull him.
It's crazy.
If you had any other job and you were talking.
So here's the deal. Biden did do a speech where he was talking about, hey, airports in the Revolutionary War. But what was Biden talking about? Trump said that during the Revolutionary War in the 1776 between 1783, before the airplane was even invented, that we invaded the airports and we took over the airports. Trump said that. And Biden was making fun of him. Rogan doesn't realize that. He thinks that Biden was saying that there were airports in the Revolutionary War, when Biden was actually making fun of Trump. Notice this. What does Joe Rogan say now? Well, Biden doesn't know what he's doing. He's off. I mean, I don't know how you'd vote for this guy. He's mentally out there, right? Now, watch what happens when his producer corrects him and points out that no, Biden was quoting Trump. Watch how they flip the whole script here. It's really embarrassing. This is really humiliating. If we did anything like this, I would fucking kill everybody.
Fucking like that.
Yeah.
They would go, hey, you're done.
A few moments later.
The same stable genius said the biggest problem we had in the Revolutionary War is we didn't have enough airports. Whoa.
Yeah, that's it.
Whoa.
What?
Just for the record.
Is that fake?
It's not fake, but he was referencing Trump saying that. Here's what Trump saying it in 2019.
Oh.
Donald Trump said something about that. He didn't say Jesus. He said a stable genius, and that's where the transcription.
Let me hear what it says. What did he say?
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York, and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. The Continental Army suffered a bitter winter of Valley Forge, found glory across the waters of the Delaware, and seized victory from Cornwallis of Yorktown. Our army manned the air. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he fucked up.
Yeah, he did. But I feel like
Took over
that's
the airport.
you can tell too. It sounds like a little different. He's like, you can tell he like messed up his words, but
Yeah.
Oh, there it was. When they think Biden said it, he's mentally incognizant and he doesn't know what's going on.
And Trump, and they're roughly the same age.
I'm sorry,
And Trump-
incompetent. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. And they're roughly the same age. When Trump does it,
It's a
was just
mistake. It was a mistake.
Flip. Yeah.
It was a gaffe. He's such a fucking hypocrite, man. He's so stupid. I mean, maybe one day we'll do this where he does the clip where he has a tattoo of Musashi Miyamoto on his arm. And I'm sorry, I'm from a samurai family. I know who Miyamoto Musashi is. And I can tell you what's really funny about that to me is you do realize that for Miyamoto Musashi, for a lot of the samurai, for a lot of the bushi, right? Tattoos were forbidden. You don't mark yourself with your accomplishments. It was shallow. It was seen as pathetic. And yet he's got a tattoo of a guy who believed that on his arm.
Like it was seen like bragging too much or something.
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah, like being too showy or too bragging.
Actually, it was seen as pathetic. It was like bragging to the point of being pathetic. And that he's got a tattoo of the guy who believed that on his arm, a guy who never had any tattoos. Because in his time period, the only people who had tattoos were Yakuza. They were gangsters. Samurai didn't have tattoos. And yet he's got a tattoo of a guy who was against tattoos. And also doesn't understand any of the guy's teachings. I mean, the guy's a fucking joke. And the whole thing is just like, okay, oh, well, Biden does it. He's fucking incompetent. He doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, but when Trump does it, oh, well, he messed up.
How quickly they turn.
It's amazing to me. But, it's amazing is millions of people watch that and they eat that shit up. And it's sad. It's really sad. But we'll move on. Let's do this. So let's talk about, the elections are coming up next year. Let's talk about the economy real quick. And then if we have time, we might go to another clip. But let's just do this real quick because I think this is important. So this is Chris Hayes. And he's going to talk about the U.S. economy because this has been a big issue. So they predicted there was going to be a recession for years now, and it hasn't happened. And Chris Hayes is going to jump into what's happening with the U.S. economy. This is a couple weeks old, but it's still
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We are just a few weeks from the first actual votes being cast in the early nominating contest for the presidential election. And one of the main points of discussion, central focuses heading into this election, centers around the economic well-being of our country.
That's because, generally speaking, how people feel about the economy writ large is largely predictive of how an incumbent president will perform if and when they run for re-election. A lot of people have noticed that there is a strange paradox at the center of our economy, which is that if you look at many, if not most, of the empirical metrics, the economy is doing surprisingly well. If you look at economic sentiment, however, how people feel about the economy, the numbers are near historically pessimistic. There's a real gap between how the economy is actually doing, at least based on most of the measurements we normally use, and how people think the economy is doing. Or, I should say at the very least, how they tell pollsters they feel about it. You can see it here on this chart. You see how the blue line, how you'd expect people would feel about economic numbers, and the red line, how they actually feel, have usually been in sync, right? Like when things get worse, people feel worse. When they get better, people feel better. Right now, there's a huge gulf between them. That gulf, it is worth noting, does not exist in similar wealthy countries like France and Germany and the UK. It's only here, even though we're doing a lot better than those places. And because...
So that's a great point. And I want to kind of... hang on. I want to kind of hammer that home for 1 second. Part of that is yeah, the economy is doing really well. And I'll give Biden credit. He's done a lot of really great things to boost the economy, and wage growth is finally going up. But the bottom line is we've had such a gap for such a long time that it's really difficult for some of the average Americans to see it. So when you pull it, they're not getting the benefit necessarily. I mean, they've gotten some, but not enough to make a material difference in their life.
Right.
And it's kind of a devastating thing. And this is the big hurdle that Biden and the Democrats are going to have to overcome next year, which is getting the people to realize that, yeah, no, things have actually gotten better. But it's incremental. And part of it's because there's a huge gap where you have the ultra wealthy and then you just have the rest of us. And the ultra wealthy.
Sometimes what happens in life, and I don't even mean this in numbers, but we sort of become a little desensitized to things like, you gained a little weight, but you kind of didn't notice because it was sort of happening in these little increments, right? Or right. It's like that with anything. And so that just makes me think of your point of one of the tricky parts is communicating that growth, making it seem obvious.
Right.
Oh,
absolutely.
You wake up 50 pounds later and you notice, but you wake up 5 pounds later and you might not really notice until you have to go up a pant size, right?
Right. Well, and we could do a whole hour on this, and I'm just gonna wrap it up here in a couple minutes. But so here was just here's a great article from Yahoo Finance. 3 years in Bidenomics, 4 things that went right, 3 things that went wrong. All right, so they're just scrolling through. Hang on. Come on. Okay. Inflation fell pretty sharply. Job growth actually has been really good. Let's see. The Federal Reserve just recently, they're going to hold off on raising rates, and they're going to try and lower rates starting at the end of next year to get to a soft recession, right? But you go through this whole thing, and it's what really comes down to is the big things is the economy has done really well. The main issue is that not everybody's feeling it. Not everybody's seeing it. And part of that's because of there's just a big gap, right? So unemployment rate has stayed pretty steady. Job growth has actually been pretty good. Inflation has been really good. But the thing is, when you look at all these numbers comparatively, and please go look up the article. I mean, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. It doesn't always factor into the broader community. And that's kind of the issue here. And like you said, sometimes it's It's gradual. But the question is yeah, it's gradual, but is it actually going to affect them in a positive way? I think it will. I mean, honestly, I really do. But like you said, it's going to take years. It's not going to happen overnight. It'd be nice if it did, but it just doesn't work that way. But I want to do one more clip here real quick. Mehdi Hassan is going to talk about kind of what's going on with the economy and how it's going. But it's so much better than it was under Trump. It's better than it was under any Republican.
Republicans say the economy is the worst it's been for 40 years, but it isn't. Don't take my word for it. Look at the numbers. Number one, jobs. Unemployment is at 3.5%. It's been below 4% for 17 months in a row. Joe Biden has added more than 12 million jobs to the economy. No president has done that before in a single 4-year term. Number two, manufacturing. We now have a boom in infrastructure spending, and that's according to Morgan Stanley Bank. They say we have a boom as a result of Joe Biden's Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, as a result of his Chips and Science Act, as a result of his Inflation Reduction Act. Let's talk about number three, growth. Growth is up. It exceeds expectations quarter after quarter. In fact, Bloomberg said there was a 100% chance of a recession this year. Guess what? We haven't had a recession. There's no recession in sight. Number four, inflation. Inflation was at record levels last year, but now it's down to 3%. It's gone down 12 months in a row. And number five, wages. Real wages are up. Workers are benefiting. Income inequality is actually falling. When you look at the numbers, Bidenomics is nothing short of a miracle right now. Republicans say...
So he's right. I mean, and the bottom line is it's getting better. It's just, it doesn't always immediately affect everybody. And that's the message that's not getting out. And the issue becomes there are bigger problems that we have, which is wealth inequality, right? And income inequality. But the bottom line is it's slowly getting better, which honestly, boys and girls, Lacey and I have not seen in our adult lifetimes. We've seen nothing but stagnant wage growth while productivity skyrocketed. It's always been a loose labor market where there's less people than jobs, and they could basically get us for fucking pennies on the dollar because we were desperate. And now it's changed. Now it's a tight labor market where they have to start bargaining for us, and wages are going up. And part of this is a result of the pandemic, and part of this is a result of Biden actually putting through all these measures and all these different things to try and flip the scale a little bit.
Right.
Because the bottom line is this country is built on a middle class and a strong middle class. And the more of us that are middle class and the fewer of us that are poor, the more powerful we are. And this idea that, oh, some people get to be ultra billionaires and the rest of us just get the leftovers. Once you start playing that card too much, what ends up happening, you end up having nothing but in a landed gentry, an aristocratic society, and a bunch of fucking peasants that they abuse. And then what happens? Revolution. Always. And it's especially in this country. And I'll give the Republicans that. It's a good thing they pushed for guns to be legal, because now we can kill all of them later on. If that's what it comes down to. Because we have easy access to firearms. And there's a lot more of us than there are of them. I think it's just a missed point. But I think there's a good point here for the argument for the 2024 election, which is we need to rebuild the middle class. We need to make quality of life better for as many people as possible. And we need to get as many people working in the workforce, part of the workforce, and prospering in the workforce. If we can do that.
Wait a minute, hold on. Are you suggesting that maybe more than just a small handful of people could win with money, and then it kind of like would be good for everybody?
Yeah, the high tide raises all boats. Amazing. What? That's not just me, boys and girls.
Chattering.
It's not just me, boys and girls. That's every fucking economist. And economists are not wealthy guys. Most economists are fucking academics. They're professors. They don't make millions of dollars a year. So, yeah, it's not a corrupt idea.
Yeah, but there's also just this weird mindset, and I'm not trying to take this, too far another direction, but there is this kind of weird mindset that, and it's based on people's experiences and observations, but there's this mindset of, only certain people get to have, only certain people get to, prosper. So it's an issue, the mental hang up too.
Yeah, it's also this idea that certain people deserve it or they're better by whatever virtue or hard work or whatever. And that's just not the case. There are a lot of people that work their asses off that are very virtuous that never get anywhere.
Sure.
So you can't sit there and tell me, you're basically trying to sell me the hooker with a heart of gold here. I mean,
right.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's so rare that it's almost not worth discussing. But anyway, let's we got a few minutes. Do you have a few minutes left, or how are you doing for time?
Yeah. Though I have to say my brain is fading, so are we gonna just do one more?
We're gonna do a Ramsey one, and then we're gonna bail. Is that cool?
All right. Yeah, let's do. I'm just noticing my brain is being more drifty now.
That's okay. Yeah, no, we'll do one more, and then we're out. All right, boys and girls.
I can focus for that one.
We're gonna do an old-fashioned cage match. Lacey and I, and we're gonna go against Dave Ramsey and his daughter Rachel Cruz. You pumped? You ready? I gotta stretch a little.
All right, so this is Dave and Rachel.
Yep.
All right, so we gotta outplan them and see if we can predict what they're gonna say.
Yep.
All right.
I know, it's all the burden's always on us. All right, let's see if we can do it. I actually did watch this before, so I've got an advantage, but
Okay, I have not watched this.
Lacey hasn't seen it, so.
Dylan is with us in Miami. Hi, Dylan. Welcome to the Ramsey Show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
I'm sorry. Hang on, everybody. Hang on. Let me put the captions on. There you
22 years old, and I just graduated undergrad and got married the next day. My wife and I don't have any debt, but 2 weeks after our wedding, my mother passed away.
Oh no!
And,
Gosh, I'm sorry, Dylan.
Yeah.
Was that unexpected?
So, yes and no.
Mm.
Yes, in the fact that she declined so quickly. She died at 61, so she left us her IRA, which has about $300,000 in it. And then the main reason I'm calling is because the house that she left has $60,000 left on it. And I'm just wondering, what I'm planning to do is rent it out and have my renters pay the mortgage. But I also have the life insurance, which is, I got about $90,000 left on that, just kind of sitting in my bank account. Should I just go ahead and pay the mortgage off completely and then have that passive income, or what would you guys do?
Wow.
All right. So very unfortunate circumstance for Dylan here. That's sad, man. Young and his mom died off like that. That's really tough.
Okay, so what are let's distill down the nuts and bolts. I honestly, my brain was getting itself a little bit sort of just stuck in his sort of crazy circumstance. I was,
right. So he inherited $300,000 from her IRA.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
He's got $90,000 left from the life insurance.
Okay.
And he got the house. And he's asking, should I rent the house out and just pay it off and rent it out for passive income? Now, I have a number of things, and it involves a lot of questions about what are his objectives.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I have more questions than solutions right now, because I want to know some more things about his general circumstance and goals, honestly.
Sure. I don't have any solutions either right now. My guess is Well, what is your guess? I already know, so my guess doesn't count.
Okay, wait. What else does he have going on? So that's the stuff that.
So the question is the main question is should he rent the house out? What do you think?
Okay.
Should he pay it off and rent it out?
I think Dave will say, well, we need to walk right up the baby steps. And then he's going to say, yada, yada, emergency savings. Got any debt for your stuff? Do you have your house paid off? If your house isn't paid off, we're not going to go and pay off this other house that's not the one you live. I think.
Well, he's. I'm gonna just give you the clue here. He's 22. He doesn't have a house. He's renting.
So Dave likes real estate, but I think he's going to play the walk him up the baby steps game, and suggest that if there's money enough that he maybe either moves into the house or gets a paid for house of his own, because bam, then building wealth, yada yada, is going to be, I think, his story.
That she should rather just get his own house, kind of thing. That's what you're arguing.
Yeah. What I'm not sure about, to be totally honest, is I'm not sure if that means he's going to directly nix the rental thing, because Dave does like real estate, and paid for real estate is what his thing would be. But if the guy's 22 and does not have a house, I think Dave will make a primary objective the house that he lives under before a rental house. That's what I'm gonna put my vote on, or some variation of that.
Sure. No, that's not a bad guess. I want to talk about this though. So there's a couple things that need to be discussed before everything else. So the $90,000 insurance, right? Insurance, life insurance, is tax free. Okay, so that's his money. All right. However, he can get the house at a stepped up basis to a degree, but if he sells the house, there might be some tax, but not much to it, right?
Okay, so can you pause for a minute and give us the quick explanation of what stepped up basis means for people who may not have encountered that concept?
So this is a very important concept when it comes to estates or inheritance. If you're giving people money,
inheritance and taxes,
or you're receiving money, yeah. So, certain kind of stock accounts, things like that, will give you, and houses, things like that, certain property. Let's say I'm Lacey's father, and I'm old and I die. And I leave Lacey my house, and I also leave Lacey, a bunch of gold. Like gold bricks, right? That I've bought and invested in. Now, I've already paid tax on all this shit for the most part. So when Lacey gets them, she gets from the date of my death to up to 6 months after, and it's whatever the fair market value is of the house and the gold. All right? If she sells them within that time period, or even after that, that is what the fair market value is that she gets, and it's called stepped up basis, which is the IRS assumes I paid tax on all that already. So Lacey doesn't have to pay any taxes on any of that up to that point. So that's kind of the nice thing about it. So the nice thing about like real estate property is you pay tax on all the money you put into it, right? But when you sell it, like if I were to sell it personally, the house, let's say it was a $500,000 house and I had, I had 300,000 in it, or 400. Let's say I had 500,000. Let's say it was a $500,000 house. I'd already paid it off. I put 500,000 into it, right? And let's say I sold it for 6. I would owe full tax, ordinary income tax, on that extra 100,000 above the 500,000. Lacey wouldn't have to because she inherited it at that market value. Now, so that's the issue. So the life insurance, he doesn't have any tax burden on. Life insurance is almost always tax-free. I can't think of an instance where it wouldn't be. It's almost always tax-free. Life insurance, it's a great product for the right situation. It's not for everybody, but for the right situation, phenomenal product. The house, also, he could sell it right now. Probably wouldn't owe any taxes on it, on any of the money. All right. The bigger issue is he's got $300,000 in his mother's retirement account. And if it's a traditional retirement account, which I'm guessing it is, right? If it's a Roth, he doesn't owe tax. But if it's traditional, he has to start taking that money out. And he's got a situation where he has to do it.
He didn't say Roth. I guess I was making some assumptions that we were maybe in traditional because people like to usually say Roth, but maybe we don't know.
No, but I would be asking that question.
I would, yeah.
Because if it's a
certainly.
Roth, it changes the whole scenario.
It does change it. It changes definitely the advice by a long shot. It makes a huge difference.
Right. The first thing I would be telling him is, well, look, with the house situation, it really comes down to what do you want to do? If you want to rent out the house, it's going to be a bitch. You're going to have to hire a manager or you're going to have to do it yourself. You're going to have to comply with all the state laws. You're going to have to find a renter. And frankly, you're going to have to find somebody who's willing to rent. And furthermore, somebody who's not going to destroy the house. So you're going to have to vet the renter. On top of that fact, I mean, what if you can't rent it? What if it sits vacant for 6 months? Then you're paying the HOA, you're paying the taxes, and you're not making any money. I would say at somebody that age, I would just be like, let's just get rid of the house and let's invest that money for you. Because it's tax-free money right now. So why not just take it in cash? On top of that fact, I would say the IRA is the bigger issue because you're going to have to start withdrawing money from that and pay taxes on it pretty soon. With inherited IRAs, they require you to either drain it out within, I think it's like 10 years. I mean, there's a couple different rules on that. We can go through that at some other point. But yeah, I mean, he's going to be in a position where he's got to take that out. The IRS is going to force him, or they're going to penalize the shit out of him for not taking it out. So the IRA is a different management issue. So you need to either take that money out and use it for something or invest it in something. Right? I would be more concerned about that because that's the immediate issue that's going to hurt him is the IRA. He could sit on the house for another year and just pay the tax and shit. Hell, he could pay it out of the fucking distributions from the IRA. Right? He'd be bleeding cash, but it wouldn't be that bad overall. I would say, frankly, look, I think the smart move, sell the house, buy your own house. Take the withdrawals from the IRA that you're required to take, and then just pay the tax on it and reinvest it.
All right, let's see what Dave says.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to go that in depth. I think he's just going to talk about whatever. I mean, I saw this. I can't totally remember all of it. I skimmed it. So
I'm so sorry.
That's completely.
So, Mrs. Ramos, what does your son do?
He says he sells clouds. He works in a cloud company and sells clouds.
1, 2, 3.
Tough 2 weeks after you're married to make all these decisions. I wish we could slow down. Okay. Here's the thoughts that pop into my head. Okay. Number one, renting a property as a landlord is not passive income. That's humorous. That's crap from TikTok. Okay. Because there's nothing passive about dealing with renters. I've got a bunch of them. I have been.
Well, I am planning to hire a property.
Doesn't matter. It's not passive. This is very active. Okay. You have a hassle factor in your life called renter. Okay, it's just part
and
of.
They'll be renting your mom's home.
And they're going to be in the home you probably grew up in, right?
See, now here's what I will agree with Dave, because here's a guy who, I mean, his father was in real estate, his mother was in real estate, his bachelor's degree was in real estate. He worked in real estate. He knows this. He's right. Renting is a fucking pain in the butt.
Well, I'll chime in on this because that's something that I'm involved in.
Yeah.
Now, not to the extent Dave Ramsey is. Yeah. So, because he's got tons of property. But my experience is if you have a good management company, you can minimize what you actually have to do. Like if you have a good management company and they have good maintenance, you're not literally going over there and changing stuff, unless, of course,
right. But you have to pay them. You have to pay the management company.
But that does eat into what you can profit. It eats into your income because you have to pay them, and you don't want to go with somebody who's under market because you're probably going to get an under market service and you want a really good service. But also what that doesn't eliminate is there is a mental hassle factor. I think Dave Ramsey likes to play up the hassle factor. But I can guarantee you when, if you have renters, when other things in life are all coming up for you is the moment you have to replace entire bathrooms, or like appliances get shot, or suddenly a heater happens. It just works that way. That's been an experience that I've had too. So not only is there a little bit of a mental hassle, even if you are not the one doing the labor for it, there's also, you've created for yourself extra things you need to financially prepare for, even though you get more income with which to do it. You have to allot a lot more to it. So I'm half agreeing with Dave.
Yeah. Well, and even with the management company, before anything gets done or anything has to be signed off on, you have to sign off on it. So there's always going to be
bare minimum. They're calling you, emailing you, and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to give him points, because I think as a real estate guy, he knows this situation pretty well, and he's done it before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My issue here is that he's ignoring the bigger issue, which is the IRA and how to manage that.
Well, maybe he'll say something. We might have.
No,
he might have paused before he got there.
I doubt it. I don't think he did. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I don't think he did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's weird emotionally. It's hard. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's the number one thing. So can this be done? Yes, it can be done. You're 22. You're brand new married. In my opinion, the last thing you need is the hassle of a rental property. But if you're going to keep this and give that a try, you should pay it off. Okay. Okay. And because that will lower the hassle. You won't have a payment anyway. And so take the insurance money out of the checking account, pay the mortgage off. I normally wouldn't like to make that decision.
I'm going to disagree with him on that point. Frankly, I agree with him on the point of I don't think you should do it. I think it's a bad idea.
I think also, like, if you weren't going to take the money out and pay it off, you have to look very carefully at the spread to see if you're really going to make money on it, because there are factors people don't consider. All they want to think is the rent versus the mortgage, and they're not thinking about plenty of other things that go into it. Especially if this guy's 22, he might be a brilliant 22-year-old, but he doesn't have much experience with having to deal with things with real estate.
Well, right. And I think the biggest issue right out of the gate is vacancy. Can you fill the house with somebody who's not going to destroy it?
Right. And somebody who's not going to be moving every year, because when you have, sometimes younger folks, I'm not saying they're bad renters, but a lot of times, people in their 20s like move every year, for a while.
Yeah, they're not as reliable.
And so if you have to fix things, you always have to fix things in between renters, even if they were really good ones. There are things that you end up having to do to fix it that also eats into what your income was. So again, your spread becomes super important.
Right. On top of that fact, so I think that yeah, I agree with that first point. You shouldn't rent it. You should just sell it. I know it's difficult because it's his mother's house and all that. Maybe he grew up there. I don't know what the issue is. But my issue comes down to, okay, so let's say he's saying, well, if you're going to rent it, take the insurance money and pay it off. That doesn't make sense to me. Why are you pissing away 60 grand of the 90 of tax-free money into the mortgage of the house? It's not going to necessarily increase your equity, and you don't know if it's going to work, if you're going to get renters. So you might actually lose some of that money. So you're putting money at risk that doesn't need to be put at risk. It makes no sense to me. Why not just use the renter pay to pay off the mortgage and keep the actual cash so you have the cash available? I mean, you're 22. What if you want to start a business? What if you and your wife, one of you gets a really great job and you guys have to move? You need to have that liquid cash available to do that. So my attitude is I would invest that cash and do something more secure. But I think that's a ridiculous statement. Yeah, just you've got 90,000 tax free, and you're going to give 60,000 of it to the bank to pay off the mortgage to try and rent a property that you don't even know if you can rent or if you can manage. That just seems like a really stupid idea to me. But, you know.
On that property that quickly, but I will tell you, like the home Rachel grew up in is now in my rental portfolio. We kept it. It is weird. I haven't lived in that house in 20 years. It is weird to go over to that house with other people's crap in it, still emotionally. And I landlord a bunch of property, and I grew up in the real estate business, so I've got a huge advantage over you. And I'm old. I've done this a lot. Okay, you're 22. This is your first property. I'm warning you that the first time that they screw around with the house you grew up in.
Yeah, keep nodding, Rachel, like you understand what's going on. She has no clue what's happening right now, does she? Is that just me?
She's just waiting to hear. She's waiting to hear enough of her father's opinion so she can agree with it.
Yeah.
They being the tenant, it's going to be emotional for you. Just be ready for that. Okay. No one. It's never going to be the same. It's never going to smell the same in there. Okay. And so all of that. Now, so if you want to get a professional property manager, that's great.
Are you local, Dylan? Where the house is?
Yeah.
Are you guys close?
I'm not. I'm in Miami. The house is in Central Florida.
That's not too bad. I don't like long distance landlording either. So I'm going to tell you that it with all the emotions, if we had a little bit of time to digest all of this, I might just sell it. But that's even a harsher thing than letting a renter be in it. So it's not an automatic thing that at 22 years old, 2 weeks after you're married, you ought to be a landlord. That's not an automatic thing. Okay. So it's an automatic thing you probably shouldn't do, actually, just in terms of quality of life for you. But it's thrown in your lap, and here we are. So if you want to try it, just be forewarned that it's not passive. You're going to have some emotions around other people and smells being in your house. No pets. I love pets. One of my favorite things on the planet is my little dog, but no pets, not in my rental properties. Okay. We call them $10,000 cats. They devalue your house $10,000 when they put the cat in there. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So never gets to the financial question. Ever. Never gets to the IRA, never gets to the insurance, never gets to the, if you're gonna rent it, this is what your risks are, this is what the potential returns could be, this is what you could do if you just sold it and got rid of it. Never there's no financial analysis here.
He didn't actually ask enough questions about this person's individual situation either. I was kind of surprised. I mean, not that he asks a ton of questions anyway, but I thought he would have dug it a little further.
Yeah, that never gets to it. Well, anyway, let's close out because I'm done with that.
All right.
Where can everybody catch you?
All right, as always, if you're looking for me and my material, you can go to mysensewithsense.com. You can find articles, information about workshops, courses. If you want further information about any of those, you can email us or send us clips. We love that. Invite yourself on the show, throw some topic requests at us. And where should they do that, Duncan?
You can do it at Gossip Finance at 80 at outlook.com. Thank you for everybody for watching, and have a great day.